Hello and welcome to episode 7 of One Bottle Each. I'm joined today by my friend Gil Kulers. A native New Yorker now based outside of Atlanta, Gil is Maitre D and Somm for Piedmont Driving Club in the Atlanta area. He's written about wine for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Golf Digest, among others. Gil, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Gabe. I'm excited to do this. It seems like a lot of fun.
Thanks. Yeah, well, you were on when I decided to do this, you were on my short list of people I wanted to have. So thank you so much for being here. I think one of the things that I know that you and I have in common when it comes to wine is that we believe in demystifying it, and we're not so into the snobbery that often comes with wine or has traditionally come with wine. How do you think we're doing with that in the US these days?
Absolutely horrible. Folks like me come to your table and I'm kind of dressed the way I am. And there's so much pretense that can be to be had. And I think a lot of people in my position really don't even notice that. So what I see is I do actually try, even though I present in such a way, I do try to keep the customers as relaxed as possible. I never use technical words. I say the word yummy or not yummy a lot, and we don't have to go any farther than that. I try to avoid questions, well, do you like this wine? And I try to explain to them that it's like, it really doesn't matter what I think about the wine. I mean, you can tell me a lot of things about what you like and what you don't like, and perhaps I'll come to the table with a wine that you might not have expected, but you will definitely love. I don't see a lot of other folks doing that. And I think it extends a little bit to some of your better wine shops too. They just make folks afraid of wine. And I think that's one of the things that, beer, I mean, there's just been renaissance of craft beer making here and craft and beer appreciation. And they don't seem to have as much of a problem, although there's obviously plenty of beer snobs out there. But I think, I love the way you approach these things, Gabe. I don't think I've ever seen you out of a t-shirt, and I've never actually seen you out of a cool t-shirt too, but that's another thing. And I think, and it's clear that, Gabe, you know a lot about wine and you could be as pretentious as the next guy. But that's not what I'm all about. I am all about getting more people into the room. If that means you want a cup of ice with your Merlot or whatever, Pinot Noir, I guess these days, I will bring you a glass of ice and make you feel good about that. I don't think everyone kind of does that, or people don't do that enough to just be, to have the overall goal be, I want you to have the best possible experience with wine that you can, and if that includes ice, so be it. And
Absolutely.
we could stand for a lot less. We still have a long way to go with that.
Do you think we've moved the needle some though in the last, 5 or 10 years?
No, I really don't. I don't see enough wine education. I see folks, servers, actually sort of buying into this well, not necessarily the somm or maybe the owner coming in from the restaurant. They also seem to have this image of wine that you need to know a tome of all these wine books before you can appreciate a glass of wine. You don't have that situation with steaks, right? But I still think, we go into restaurants and people still remain intimidated by the wine list, the folks who are pouring the wine, whether it's the somm or not. I just think we need to push the needle a whole lot farther. And I don't know how you actually do that. I do my part, and I know folks like you do your part, but out in the great big world, I still think too many people are afraid of wine, and it's the folks who are handing the bottle over or pouring the glass that are really a big part of the problem.
I agree with you, and I think it's been said before, but what you just said a minute or so ago about the steak, the average person walks into a restaurant and orders whatever they order to eat. They have no problem passing judgment on the food or having an opinion on the food, yet somehow they're afraid to, if they don't think they know enough, to pass judgment on the wine or simply offer their opinion on whether they like the wine or not. And it should be exactly the same thing. I mean, wine, as many of us like to say, I mean, wine is food.
And they're even seemingly even afraid to ask a question or mispronounce a word on the label, and they're sort of, oh, I failed, or they feel bad about it. I mean, gosh, there's a lot of stupid words on wines that are hard to pronounce. And the other thing, I mean, going back to the food parallel, I think more people are. It's like, avocado with shrimp and some papaya extract. They'll say, "Oh boy, that sounds crazy, but I want to try that." They would never do that with a wine from, say, Croatia. I mean, Croatia makes great wines, by the way, and I have a couple on my list. Do you know how many people have come in and ordered those Croatian wines? Absolutely none. Absolutely none. Have I sold any? Yes, but I had to bring it to them and say, "Hey, you're going to like this. You won't recognize any words on the label because they have, what's it, Cyrillic as their alphabet is a little bit weird.
Yeah, I think
they have a lot of extra letters that I don't know how to pronounce them myself. But there you go. There's your example. They're much more willing to be adventurous on the food side of things, but much less so on the wine side.
True.
Which is unfortunate. I mean, wine is a great place you'll never get bored.
No, well, that actually leads to my next question. You just said you'll never get bored, but is there something that's bored you? Is there something that you were drinking a lot of 10 years ago, be it a variety or from a region, whatever, that just not that interested in anymore today that you were in the past?
Wow, that is a good question, Gabe. Man, I really do. I guess I was in a while ago. It's funny. This is actually a really good question. So a while ago, I'd like to think that I was in the ABC camp, anything but Chardonnay.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that time, there was just so many, California style Chardonnays out there. By the way, we both picked probably two types of wine I picked a Chardonnay, you picked a Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those out there.
That's true.
But it's funny. So I've come full circle. So, it's like, oh, not another boring California Chardonnay. And I like to think these days that if you had to send me to the island with one wine, I think it would be a Chardonnay, perhaps the one I'm having tonight from Oregon. But I've kind of discovered over the last, say, 15, probably a little more than 15 years, I've really, I don't want to say I've completely figured it out, but I've gained a great appreciation for white Burgundy. I love it. I think it's a style that I immediately recognize. The winemakers there are able to really accentuate the greatness of Chardonnay. Now, Chardonnay, you can't deny that Chardonnay is a noble grape. Demands respect. Not every grape is a noble grape. There are lots and thousands of grapes out there that you can make wine out of, but not all of them are top shelf. But Chardonnay 100%. Clearly is, and white Burgundy, I think is which is Chardonnay, of course. Probably the style of wine that I like the most right now. So if you're bored today, maybe that's an ad for wine right there. If you're bored today with the wine, Just wait 10 or 15 years. You won't be bored soon enough.
You won't be bored with it anymore. So that leads perfectly into the wine that you selected.
Yes, indeed.
Which is the Winderly Chardonnay from Oregon, from Willamette Valley. So is that what led you to choose this wine? Is it simply that Chardonnay is really ringing the buzzer for you these days?
A little bit, because you let me know that you were going to go to Oregon, and you went to, not surprisingly, you went to Pinot Noir. But had I watched some previous episodes, you've already had a Chardonnay. Who was it? Clive Pursehouse.
Yes.
He bought in
Adelsheim.
Right. Oh, yeah. The original. I mean, that was a pretty thoughtful choice on his part. I definitely I was thoughtful about this because I believe that a lot of the qualities in Oregon Chardonnay are some of the qualities that they share with Pinot Noir. And when I say that, Oregon Pinot Noirs, I think, have established themselves as a style. I think they are distinct, certainly distinct from California Pinot Noirs. And the similarity they share with Burgundy is that Burgundian styles pretty much dictate that the vineyard speaks in your glass. And the Oregonian Pinot Noir makers share that, although there is a lot different than the Burgundies there. So the wine expresses the place expresses much differently. And I see that a lot with Oregon Chardonnay now too. And I this is a great one, Winderly Vineyards. Donna Morris and Bill Sweat up there, New Englanders, came in with a love of wine, and it's a sort of an insular industry out there, but they fit right in with them out there. Bill is 100% committed to biodynamic wines. He does all his work over the summer and early fall, and that's it. What it is what it is. He doesn't. He's not an interventionalist type of winemaker, and I feel that he's not alone in the Willamette Valley with this. They really do. They have started to approach Chardonnay in much the same style as they have their Pinot Noirs, and I kind of want more people to know about that. And I thought it'd be nice to have this interplay between your Oregon Pinot and
yeah,
this
and an Oregon Chardonnay. No, it's perfect. It makes complete sense, and I'm glad you picked this wine. I've had a few of their wines before. I visited there last time I was out there a couple of years ago. Don't believe I've had their wine since. Love this Chardonnay. It's exactly what you said. It speaks to the vineyard. You taste it. It's got a bit of tartness. There's a little bit of citrus. Stone fruit, crisp acid. It just it speaks of a place, and it really speaks of Chardonnay, and it just really has not very much in common at all with, you mentioned California Chardonnay or California Pinot Noir. Completely different. And if you pour this for somebody who drank a lot of California Chardonnay, they might not even recognize it as Chardonnay.
So Gabe, you might ask how much new oak is in this wine, wouldn't you?
Very little, I think.
Would you ask that question?
Would I ask the question? Yeah, how much new oak is on this wine?
Well, I'm glad you asked there, Gabe, because not very much, in fact. Just on the order of, I had it written down here somewhere. I mean, it's like 2%. I mean, it's very, very minimal new oak. Oh, shocking. That's exactly how they approach winemaking in Burgundy as well. Do they use new oak in Burgundy? Absolutely. Do they use, I can't, that would be a good trivia question. What Burgundian winery uses 100% new oak? I don't know. Maybe none.
Yeah. The other The other thing that I think, though, equally important with the rise of Chardonnay in Oregon is the picking choices. I think that they're, picking these grapes on time, whereas I think so often in the other style of Chardonnay, they're picked way too ripe, and that doesn't give you this, leaner wine like we have here.
Alcohol, 12.9%. These
Yeah.
days, that's pretty reasonable. And yeah, it's 8%, 9 months in French oak, and 8% is new. And there's nothing wrong with new oak.
Mm-mm.
And it's not, and I don't mean this to sound like an indictment of California Chardonnays at all. I think that is a style, and maybe that gets to the point of your earlier questions, why I was perhaps a little bit bored with California style Chardonnays. When I was first, starting to see all these California Chardonnays, that was really kind of a new style because they were still sort of amping up the intensity, the alcohol, the oak treatments in the Chardonnays. And that was kind of new and maybe a little bit confusing. But today, I mean, I recognize it as an established style, and that's a good thing. I mean, that they're on the maps for what they do, and many California winemakers do a fabulous job with their Chardonnay. So definitely trying not to be mean. We can't be mean to the good California Chardonnay makers out there, Gabe.
No.
They're our friends.
Indeed. I prefer, by and large. I mean, there's certainly California Chardonnays I love, but this style, this expression, which to me more often speaks to the vineyard, is more in my wheelhouse, and I think would be in the wheelhouse of a lot of people who think they don't like Chardonnay.
So a lot of times people come into the dining room and they'll order white Burgundy. We actually sell quite a lot of white Burgundy here, and I say, maybe can I bring you something else? And they'll say, no, only white Burgundy. And of course, me being me, I bring a lot of times I'll bring them this wine, and then they're not really paying attention, or maybe because they're letting me choose, and I'll put that in the glass, and I'll it's like, wow, nice Burgundy, right? Or I'm being playful, and then of course and they're like, wow, this is now we are back in France. Of course, this is Burgundy, and of course I show them the bottle nonchalantly and say, well, not maybe 8,000 miles off, but stylistically maybe pretty close. Yeah, and they love it. They end up loving it. They end up hating me, which is okay, but they love the wine.
Right, and they order the wine again probably. So.
Well, that's sort of my job.
Exactly. Well, thank you for choosing this wine. I'm glad to showcase another Oregon Chardonnay, because I too am a proponent of the style and the wines. So next, continuing in Oregon, we have the Chehalem Coral Creek Vineyard Pinot Noir, a single vineyard Pinot Noir. But when I was picking a wine, thinking of what to choose to taste with you, I just felt like Pinot Noir was what I wanted, and I can't give you any specific reason why that was, except that was intuitively what I was feeling. And once I made that decision, I thought, you know what? Let's taste one of the single vineyards from Chehalem that I haven't tasted recently, and reached out, and we're tasting this.
Apology accepted there, Gabe. No problems at all. Yeah, I got no problems with Oregon Pinots either, and that it's a whole nother complete area to explore. I mean, they're really quite a young wine region. They really have not. I mean, yeah, they did started in more or less in the 60s. Everyone knows that. But they really haven't come on the scene in a big way. I mean, the 80s? I want to say the 80s. Mm-hmm. They really started making enough quality wines for people to take notice. So I mean, I would think they would agree that they're still figuring things out up there too. Very exciting place.
I agree. And I think really, even to dial it down a little further, I would say really the last decade or so is when they've really sort of hit public consciousness on a greater level. Outside of, wine geeks and things like that, realizing there's good Pinot Noir in Oregon, the last 10 years or so, I think, the more closer to the average consumer has an idea that, hey, I can go to Oregon wines and get some good juice.
And I would agree on as far as, if I may reference, what I'm doing here at the club.
Of course.
When I first got here, we had an okay number of Oregon Pinots. Now we have like a whole page of at all price points, a lot of quality. Some maybe a little bit off what you might expect from Oregon Pinots. A little bit more winemaker driven, but those are fewer. Fewer than the norm. I mean, there's a lot of, and people are asking for it. I guess that's maybe my greater point. People out in the consumer world, they'll just ask for, I want an Oregon Pinot, you pick. But they want Oregon Pinot. And it's funny, in those situations, I don't bring them a Burgundy. I bring them actually an Oregon Pinot.
Or an Oregon Pinot Noir. Yeah, that's, that would be an interesting double switch the other way. So what do you think of this Pinot?
Oh, it's yummy. So wine's first order of business is to be yummy. I'm very glad you did not, this might have been more animated, but I'm glad you didn't send me one of those orange wines, because I have some pretty definitive opinions about that. This one's not orange for sure.
No. Yeah. I happen to be a pretty big fan of well-made orange wine. I'll put it that way.
I mean, it has a fairly, it's pretty intense, all things considered, but not overwhelming. A lot of floral notes.
What I find interesting here is, I agree, there's an intensity there, but I think it has a softer approach than maybe the most textbook Oregon Pinot Noir.
Really precise acidity. Super food wine. You could eat anything with this. More toward the red and black fruits for sure. Lovely. I bet you could lay, what is this? This is the what's the vintage? 18. I bet you could lay this down for a couple of years. Has sort of a youngish sort of note to it, but you could definitely drink it now.
Sure.
Gabe, I'm so sorry. I didn't spit that last sip. It is the end of my shift here. So
I encourage my guests to drink or taste, whatever works for them.
Yeah. Killer. Oh, and I want to point out for you wine lovers out there, they have an awesome label. So if you can see the label right there, I guess, let's see, where's the camera? See that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, if you go to their website, they have an aerial view of this vineyard. And it's not gold, but it looks exactly like that. So you think this is kind of an abstract thing going on, but that's exactly what the vineyard looks like, which I thought was pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
If you're into labels, and there's nothing wrong with that either, to be honest.
No, not at all. I think we should mention, the Chardonnay mid-40s retail.
How much would you pay for it, Gabe?
I think right around $45. I really think it's an outstanding Chardonnay. Also a great food wine. And the Pinot Noir is $50 retail. It's a smaller production for Chehalem. I believe it's I've got that here, a few hundred cases, 320 cases. And
also here, if there's a downside to Oregon wines, they don't know a plot of land that they won't make a separate bottling of. And they're all the productions are almost always in the hundreds of bottles.
Well, that's fascinating for people like us who like to drill down into the wines a little bit more. And, like you said, it being yummy is the most important thing. But then, the thing about wine is you can go as far past yummy as you'd like to, or stay right at yummy if you want to stay at yummy.
Right, exactly. There's going to be a gentleman in this room on Saturday, and he's celebrating his I don't know, a significant birthday with a 0 at the end. And he had I sent him the wine list, and he was perusing it, and he picked 2 wines, actually a Corton, 2 Corton, 1 Corton red. One has a little bit more age on it, and it's a little bit more delicate. It's something that you and I and maybe 3 or 4 other folks that would actually pause the dinner and talk about the wine, and the dinner would not be less for it. I said, that's not the kind of dinner you're going to have. You're having a birthday party. You're going to be laughing. You're going to be chatting a lot. The wine is not exactly going to be the focus of it all. So this wine, your wine that he picked another Corton, should be just fun and yummy and gulpable, and that's we got that. We got that here, and most wine shops have that too. But wine should be yummy at some level. And yes, you are indeed correct there, Mr. Sasso. It's $45.
Well, Gil, I want to thank you so much for being here and for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. And I also appreciate you getting dressed up. Most of my guests don't suit up, but much like Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother, you seem like a guy who sometimes just wants to suit up. So I appreciate that.
Well, this is my work uniform, so I would much prefer to have a cool Steely Dan T-shirt on. Well, cheers to you. We'll do seen a few of these. Cheers. It's a lot of fun there, Gabe. Talk to you soon.